Aye, shepherd's pie. Greetings from the Philippines. Welcome back to the channel for another interview with my new friend Greg, who I met a week ago now, wouldn't it?
A week and 2 nights ago.
A week or two
Got here
nights.
on
Now, there is a precise man. Yeah. So Greg is from the US of A. He has come to the Philippines with the intention on scouting the place out to see if it's for him or not. And he's a subscriber, and he has been kind enough to offer to sit down, or agree rather, to sit down for an interview. So, first of all, thanks, Greg. It's much appreciated. Tell us a little bit about yourself, mate. Where are you from? Where did it all begin?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
No, thank you.
Nice to see your abode here. I am. My name's Greg. I'm 45. I'm originally from upstate New York. About as far upstate as you can go. The closest cities are actually Montreal and Ottawa, Canada. Closest big cities. Yeah, grew up there, very rural. Went to college in Oswego, New York. Worked in Albany for a little while, and then when I was 24, I went to law school at the University of Pittsburgh.
Okay, well, this is going to be a very quick interview, so I'll just backtrack a bit because I've done quite a lot of travelling in America, but I have never been New York way. So if you're on the border, kind of where you are with Canada,
The northern border, yeah.
So how far is that away from New York City if you were to drive?
Drive is probably about a 7-hour drive to New York City.
Right. Okay. So it's a long way then.
It's a long way. Yeah, it's about as far as New York. It's not Western New York. It's the north of the Adirondack Mountains.
What's the main kind of industry where you live? Is it like agricultural or?
Historically, it was a lot of agriculture. It's one of those places in America where a lot of small towns. There was some industry, and a lot of it, went away. There was a big GM plant nearby that closed down, steel plant or aluminum plant that closed down. My dad worked in a dairy factory in the town that I grew up in, and that's still running. But yeah, it's a one of those shrinking places in the U.S.
Many would say it's seen better days than it's.
Absolutely, it was a good place to grow up. I wouldn't want to grow up there now.
Yeah. Have a lot of people left, or?
A lot of people have left. Yeah, I go back now, and I don't. Everyone I went to school with that I was friends with, for the most part, not everyone literally, but my close knit group of friends, they've all left. Yeah.
What about your family? Do you have brothers and sisters? Or?
I have one sister. She's still there. She married a farmer, and they run a big dairy farm up there. About, I think it's 3,000 or 4,000 head of cattle. So it's a big operation.
That's a big operation.
Yeah, it's a family run, but it's incorporated, and they've got other partners they brought in. I think they employ 80 or 90 people. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that is a big operation. So right, yeah. Sorry. So I just wanted to fill a bit back there because I am very ignorant when it comes to the state of New York, as you can tell. So yeah. Anyway, so you went to college.
Went to college in Oswego. Actually, I started out going to college in Long Island at a place called Dowling College, which is now no longer in existence. But I went there. I was going to be an airline pilot. After a while.
An airline pilot?
That was my. When I got done high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
Didn't have a clue. Didn't have a drive to do anything in particular. Heard about airline pilots making good money. I said, I'll try that. I was smart enough, to do it. But I got there, and everybody who was there really clearly had a passion for it. Had flown before they even got there. I had never flown a plane before.
Wow. So this was a place where people went to learn to be. I mean, what was it?
It was an aviation school, yeah.
I don't think we have that kind of thing in the UK. You either join the Air Force or you pay for it privately.
Yeah, we've got them all over the US, yeah.
But it's not like a private flying school. It's a place where you go to study to become an airplane pilot. Right?
Yeah, you get a 4-year degree.
Wow.
And I think my degree program was aircraft systems management, was what they called it. But there are several around the U.S. There's Mankato State and out west, and down in Florida, the big one is Embry-Riddle. That's a huge aeronautical school that is kind of the cream of the crop. But
You live and learn. That makes sense. I don't know why we don't have that in the UK. Someone will probably say in the comments we do now, but I don't. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I know they have a lot of international students too, so maybe there's a lot of
Come over and do it.
yeah.
And is that how the majority of airplane pilots become airplane pilots?
I am not an expert. I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of the military pilots end up being airline pilots. I just don't know if there's enough of them. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that was your plan, but I'm guessing by for that we just took a break for reasons I will not explain on camera. Yeah, so down in college, yeah.
Yep. So I figured out that really wasn't for me. So I transferred to State University of New York at Oswego,
Right.
as a meteorology major.
Wow.
That didn't work out well either. I was kind of aimless at this point in my life. I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do, and I was smart enough to do these things, but it wasn't interesting to me, and so I skipped a lot of classes. I ended up being academically disqualified. So
Academically disqualified.
that's right. I flunked out, basically.
So
That's a nice way of saying I
okay,
flunked
right.
out because I wasn't going to classes and I wasn't.
Yeah, okay. Good.
So that was another year wasted, so to speak, or just figuring out life.
So what age are you at this stage?
I started at that school at 19, left at 20. Moved back in with my parents for a year while I went to the local community college and to get my grades back up, to go back where I came from, back to the last school I had been at. Did that, got a 2-year degree in general studies. Very lucrative 2-year general studies degree. Tried to get back in the school that I had just flunked out of. They said, no, still your GPA still won't be high enough. You're going to have to go take one of these classes you failed and then come back and talk to us. So I took a summer math class at another school up near where I grew up, and I was still staying with my parents at the time. Passed that, sent it to SUNY Oswego. They said, okay, come back. So I went back as a political science major.
That's an interesting subject again. Right?
And that was where I stayed. I flourished. I ended up graduating with a 3.8 out of 4.
Was that because
GPA.
you matured, or was it because you found it more interesting?
It was because it was easier, I think. It's I did find it more interesting. It's also the programs I was in before, math and science, you have to do the work steadily. And I have ADHD and I didn't know it yet.
Right.
So, and people have different opinions on that. Some don't think it exists, but
it exists.
Yeah. Nobody wishes it didn't exist more than someone who actually has it. But with the political science degree, I found you could get assigned on a paper. You could get assigned a 5 or 10 page paper. It's due in a month, and lo and behold, if you start working on it the day before, you can still get it done and get an A. Is what I found. Right. So it was just it just doesn't require the steady work day in and day out that the science and math degrees required.
Yeah.
And I did find it very interesting. I ended up working in politics for a little while before I went to law school. So I graduated from SUNY Oswego.
What were you doing in politics? Like working for campaigns?
So my last semester of college, I did an internship in the New York State Legislature, working for a local member, just as like an aide, and it's just an entry-level aide,
And is it like a voluntary intern? Would you get paid for it?
You got a stipend.
Okay, right.
So I don't remember what it was. It wasn't enough to live on, but it was better than nothing. So people from all over the state would come down, and every member, I think there were 150 members in the state assembly, and then 100 state senators. So there were 250. There was one for every office, basically. So it was a big program. It was a good actually, probably the most fun time of my life was, I was 23. I was in Albany, New York, which to me was the big city coming from.
That's the capital, state capital.
That's the state capital. It's only about, at the time, it was about 100,000 people, I think. It's not a very big place. But yeah, it was a fun time. So I did that my last semester of college. After college, I stayed in Albany, worked at a grocery store to pay the bills. And then when the next legislative session came around, I got a job with a different member who represented the area where I'm from. Not the exact town, but just close by. And so I worked for him for 6 months, and that job also didn't pay well. Kept the job at the grocery store. I was making more hourly at the grocery store than I was working in the state legislature as an aide. And so I said, well, this sucks. And everybody around me was going to law school or talking about law school or was already a lawyer. The people we worked with were already lawyers. So I took the entrance exam, the LSAT, and did well on it. So I said, all right, I'll go to law school. It wasn't really another not so well thought out decision.
You're clearly intelligent. I mean,
I'm intelligent, yes. Yeah. And I like school. I do like school. But anyone I encounter who tells me they're thinking about law school, I try and talk them out of it. Or I at least tell them, work in a law office before you go.
Right.
That way you see up close. I didn't do that. Right. And I wish I had. But I didn't. Water under the bridge. So after that short stint in Albany, I started law school in Pittsburgh, which was great. I loved law school. That was where I figured out my ADHD. Right. It's the first when I was accepted there, they gave me a scholarship.
Wow, you must have been really good then. If you
it was totally based on the entrance exam, the LSAT score. So it was, I don't know if it's still this way. It was out of 180. I got a 163, and I think the cutoff line was 162 to get the scholarship. So,
wow.
And
if you hadn't got the scholarship, would you still have gone?
I probably would have gone to a different school.
Okay, right.
Because I was paying out-of-state tuition because I wasn't a Pennsylvania resident. So that extra, it was $12,000 a year. So that helped mitigate the cost of it. I probably would have went to a school in New York and gotten in-state tuition. But yeah, that was when I figured out I had ADHD, because that's another thing where you have to really kind of do the work to do well. And it's not because you're not writing papers in law school. You're just taking tests, basically. At least that's the way it was when I went. The whole first year is mostly you're going to lectures, you're doing the reading, and then you've got one big test at the end of the semester. So if you didn't do the preparation before that, you had to cram, and it doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
For that, with that much information you need to learn. So I didn't do great my first semester. That was when I was going to lose a scholarship. So I talked to the dean. I said, look, I think I've got this ADHD thing. I had went to a psychiatrist, and he officially diagnosed me. He said, yes, you obviously have it. Once I gave him my history and everything. And so they were willing to extend the scholarship for another semester so I could get my grades back up. And I stayed and graduated in 3 years.
Well done. Congratulations. So what happened next?
The semester before I graduated, I applied to a job with the federal government as a presidential management fellow. It's a program that they have to bring in, supposedly it was the next generation of leaders. Got into that, got a job through that, and it was advertised to me as a policy job. It turned out to not really be a policy job. Other people tell you what the policy is, and and you make it happen, basically. But I was working for U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services.
Okay.
Back before 9/11 happened, U.S. had one immigration agency called the INS. After 9/11, they split it up into 3 different agencies. So we were one of the 3. And we just handled the processing of applications for green cards and various visas, and et cetera. I was working on an when I started, I was working on the employment eligibility verification program.
Right.
And this is where it gets boring because this stuff is just.
No. Give me what's going on in America at the moment. I find it very interesting.
So there's forms you have to fill out to get a job in the States. We controlled that form basically. If you Google my name and USCIS, there will be a federal register notice that comes out with a new form that came out in Spanish. So we had that, and we had the E-Verify program, which is an online program that employers use to confirm that their new hires are actually eligible to work in the United States.
Right.
So I worked on that for a while. This was in Washington, D.C. I moved to D.C. I didn't say that, I guess. Worked on that for a few years. Did some interesting stuff. Met some good people. But I knew very early on I did not want to work the 30 years that it would be required for me to get the full government pension and everything. So that's when I started saving my pennies as much as I could and investing, and tried to get out as soon as possible.
So what age were you at this stage then when you decided that it wasn't?
I took the job at 27, and so I would say within a year or two I was like, and it wasn't just that job. That job was a good job, as you know, lots of people would love to have it. I just wasn't meant to sit in front of a computer all day.
Right.
And just hated the office politics and the people who thought they were more important than they actually were. So I just knew I wouldn't want to stay. And I figured it was going to be, with my qualifications, I was going to get an office job no matter what I was doing. So, and I had law school loans to pay off, so I needed something that was going to pay reasonably well.
Okay.
Couldn't just go be a river guide somewhere or something like that.
Is that what you would like to have done?
I mean, that sounds like fun. I'd probably do it for 6 months.
Apologies for that. I promised Greg it'd be a short interview, but my phone overheated. First time it's ever done that. Anyway, we're back. Sorry, carry on, Greg.
Yeah, so like I said, I worked on that E-Verify program for a few years. I think I was there about 5 in that one office, and ended up getting transferred to another office in USCIS that is legislative affairs, which was very interesting. We were the office. Basically, if members of Congress needed information about an immigration program that we worked on, they would contact us. We were the conduit for all the information between the agency and Congress, or the Senate or the House. So anytime, like I said, staffers needed information, we would email back and forth. Sometimes they wanted briefings. We would prepare usually associate directors within the agency would go up to Congress and brief them on whatever subject they were requesting to be briefed on. We would make sure the materials were prepped for that, make sure they were ready for that, get the right people in the room. Our agency director, or sometimes deputy director or associate directors, would go testify before Congress. We would do the prep work for that. We would assemble all the materials they would need. They call them briefing books, bring big books that they would bring up to the Hill with them that they could reference if they needed to. And then after any of those hearings, inevitably there were what were called get-backs. There would be questions that were left unanswered that we would have a week or 2 weeks or a month to get back to them with the information they were requesting. And so we facilitated all that exchange of information between the agency and Congress. So yeah, that was very interesting work. Did that about 4.5 years. At that point in my life, I was, I guess, 36, around there. And I had some family members, close family members, or close friends of the family pass on at that time in my life. And so I kind of had some introspection and said, well, my parents aren't getting any younger. You know, they were at that time in their late 60s, getting to their late 60s. And so I said, well, let me see if I can get a job closer to home. So the agency that I worked for had offices about a 2-hour drive from where I grew up. So I applied for a job there, got it. There was some hiccups along the way. Trump took office and stopped all hiring for a while, so I got stuck in limbo. But ended up in July of...
Stuck in limbo without work, or stuck?
Oh no, I still had my old job.
Okay, right.
I just couldn't move on to the new job. I had been offered and accepted it,
But you couldn't.
but the day he took office, they shut down all of that throughout the entire federal government. But things loosened up in that summer. So in July of 2017, I started working in Vermont in our offices in St. Albans, it's north of Burlington.
Bernie Sanders country.
Bernie Sanders country, that's right. So I worked there for a year. I found it was nice being closer to home, but it was difficult as a 37-year-old man to kind of integrate into a small little town where you don't know anybody. Everybody's got their cliques and their families, and I'm a 37-year-old single guy. It was kind of hard to make friends and develop any kind of social life. So that only lasted a year. And while I was there, some folks I was working with who were in DC said, hey, you're really good at your job. Any chance you want to come work with us? So I said, all right, I think so. This location isn't really working out the way I hoped it would. So the great thing about that job was they were 80% work from home.
Right.
So I only had to be in the office one day a week. And I said, well, I've got friends in Wilmington, Delaware. It's about a 2-hour train ride from Delaware to DC. So I said, I'm going to move to Delaware and work from home most of the time, take the train to DC one day a week. And that's what I did. I bought a house in Delaware, got a dog a couple months later, and tried to, set up a life there. And that was July of 2018 that I moved there. A year and a half later, COVID hit, and now I was 100% work from home, and still kind of a new city. I had some friends there, but it was, I don't know where you were or how things were where you were, but it was, everybody had their cliques, they had their bubbles, and so I had like one good friend that I would see once in a while, but it was kind of it took a mental toll. Let's put it that way. It was tough. So I was glad I had the dog to keep me somewhat sane. But yeah, it was tough. Actually started drinking more than I would have otherwise. It was just kind of numb the anxiety type situation. I was drinking every night. So that was not a great period of my life, those first few months of COVID. But I will say, a couple months in, I said, I got to stop this. So I did. I quit drinking for 100 days. I did a 100-day challenge. So that kind of reset things for me. And, by that time, you're in your new normal and it's a little better. But I didn't like the 100% work from home. The 1 day a week in the office was, I think, good for my mental health just to get in. And I didn't like the 100% work from home. And that was actually, my office moved towards that even after things opened after COVID. We were all, you still had the option to go in, but everybody I knew said, oh, 100% work from home. I don't ever have to go into the city. Boom, sign me up. So I was like, I did the same thing because there was no point to going to the office if there was nobody there. So I did that. When I guess they changed that policy at the start of 2022 to be officially you could do 100% work from home. And that ended up being the year that I quit my job.
Because of that? Or?
Not because, it was one of the factors, but it was also, I had been like I said, when I first started, I knew I didn't want to work any longer than I had to. When I when I thought it would be a kind of a shorter career for me, I was planning on 47, 20 years basically in the federal government. Um, but I had been saving, I'd been investing, and I looked at what I had and I said, you know what, I think I can make it work. I don't want to do this job anymore. I really disliked the job. It was just, sitting in front of a computer screen on video calls all day. You know, yeah, you're at home, but you can't. It's not like you can go off and take a walk or go to the gym, or you have to be there. And I never liked that. I didn't like that aspect of working ever. I don't like the have to. Someone else controlling your time, saying when you have to be somewhere. I can relate to that. Yeah. So once I got to a point where I felt like I had enough financial stability that I was good without the income, I paused. I said I'm going to stay. This was probably November of 21. This is when I started seriously thinking about going. I said I'm going to give it 6 months. I'm going to try and work through at least April. And then April rolled around. I turned 42, April 23rd of that year. 6 days later, I put in my notice. And there was kind of a stupid little straw that broke the camel's back moment of, I was leading this project. We had this quarterly meeting coming up where everyone in the division gets on a call for this, big 2-hour meeting. And part of that meeting is someone briefs everyone on their project. Well, I was going to be the one to brief on that project, except they didn't tell me ahead of time. It was when the agenda went out, I saw my name. I said, well, you're not even going to tell me ahead of time? So it was, like I said, it's a small little thing, but I was like, you know what? This was the guy that was leading the department or the division at the time was just someone I did not jive with professionally. He was one of these managers who was very good at pushing anything he didn't want to do off onto other people. He was the least stressed manager I had ever seen in the federal government, basically. He just fancied himself an ideas man, so he would just come up with, well, maybe we should do this. Hey, I have this idea. Why don't you go run with it? And anything that came across his desk that was too boring for him, he'd just pass it off to somebody else. So we already didn't work well. And when this happened, I was like, you know what? Financially free at this point, I feel like, so I'm not going to put up with this anymore. So yeah, 6 days after my 42nd birthday, I put in my notice and said I'm leaving. I ended up staying 2 months after that just to ease their transition, but yeah. And then that was took an adjustment to get used to not working. And you having a problem again?
No.
Okay. Get used to not having that paycheck. So I took a few months to kind of decompress from the working world and adjust. And I started gradually getting rid of my things. I had for years been interested in the quote unquote van life. So that's what I was going to do. And I gradually started selling or giving away all my things. And I eventually, in spring of 23, I sold my house. I had bought a little used SUV that I took the back seat out of, built a bed in the back, got a power station, got a fridge, and I hit the road and started just kind of wandering.
That's a big jump.
It was. Like I said, I had been thinking about it for a while. I had, when I decided I was going to retire early, the goal was slow travel around the world. That was, I had planned to do that before I ever saw any YouTuber talking about it. I was just like, oh, I can go here for a few months and I can go here for a couple months. But since I had gotten the dog in the last few years, and he's a 60-pound pit bull, it's not really feasible to go jumping around to different countries. So I said, well, I'll just start wandering around the U.S. So I got a national parks pass and I started traveling out west, visiting different national parks, and ended up hitting over the 2.5 years that I've been doing that, and I guess technically I don't have another thing I'm doing yet.
So
but
you've been living in a van for 2.5 years?
No, so I started out, like I said, I was just trying it out. I didn't know how I was going to like it. So I just bought an older used SUV. I didn't want to make the big investment of a van. And just bounced around. I thought, oh, if I do this and I like it, then I'll get a van. And I thought maybe after a year. Well, I ended up in the SUV for almost 2 years. And traveling around the States. And then I did, not this past summer, the one before, I spent 2.5 months in Atlantic Canada, Newfoundland and New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. And then this past spring, I said, all right, we gotta, the little SUV was getting a little old, a little too cramped. So I upgraded to a van. I showed you the picture earlier. High roof van. I could stand up in it, sink, fridge, cook my dinner. Much better experience. So I bought that in April of this year. I'd been in that ever since, until a couple months, now what, 3-4 weeks ago, I hit a deer with it, and then I came to the Philippines.
Okay, so one question. I mean, because I'm fascinated by this, I don't know, I've been fascinated by it. It wouldn't be for me, but I like the idea of it. I watch a lot of the vlogs and that on YouTube. But for someone who felt isolated by themselves when they were working from home, it's quite a solitary life to jump in a van and just be constantly
and it is,
in the van.
And that was a struggle to do. I also feel like it wasn't just the being alone part of COVID, it was the COVID part of COVID. It was the, what's happening, the world was going crazy. It was kind of just anxiety inducing. So that had passed. And I visited family regularly. I was traveling in the vehicle, but then I was going back and visiting family a few times a year. And there were a couple things that happened that actually I ended up staying with my parents a couple months. The dog got hit by a truck we were camping on the beach in Louisiana. So he needed surgery. I got him in the car after the initial emergency was, taken care of. We went back to upstate New York, and he got his surgery and took a while to recover. So I ended up being there for a few months. So I've spent time with family on and off during that time. And you can meet people on the road. It's harder to form friendships, but you're not totally isolated.
But you were enjoying it, obviously. If you did.
I was enjoying it. However, I will say now, after 2.5 years, it feels like it's time to transition to something else. It's just, it gets old. Everything gets old after a while.
Okay, so why in the Philippines now then? How long were you thinking about making the jump to the Philippines? Was it spontaneous, or were you?
Well, like I said, I originally thought about, slow travel to different countries, but I think that's how I discovered the Philippines when I was looking at different places. Frankly, it comes down a lot of it comes down to the dog, because there are a lot of countries that won't take you can't import a pit bull.
Right, because the dangerous dogs acts and things like that.
Yeah, and obviously the low cost of living.
So you can bring a pit bull into the Philippines?
Yeah, there's no breed restrictions here. The only difficulty is that just getting him here, because there are various breeds that most airlines won't fly, just because of they're called snub-nosed dogs. They're at higher risk of having some kind of health problem during transport. So that's the big lift.
So you're here now with the view to wrecking the place then, to see if it's for you?
Yeah, just checking it out to see if it could work for me.
And if it is for you, you will move here?
I'll tell you, I'm at the point now that I would move here now if I didn't have the dog.
Okay, so because we'll get it down to where you've been here, because you've not been there that long, but you've done a bit of travelling around, haven't you? But that is the plan then. If you come back from this trip and you're of the opinion that you want to move here, if you can cross the bridge of getting the dog on board, then as you're thinking at this moment you'll come. Is that where you are?
Probably, yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I'm I'll say I don't know that this trip has made me any more or less likely to actually make that jump. It's given me more information, but I still don't. I can't say one way or the other.
Okay. So where have you been in the Philippines?
Just here in Dumaguete, a little over a week and a couple days, and before that, I was in Bacolod for 4 days.
What did you think of Bacolod?
I wasn't a fan, really. It's a bigger city, but it's more spread out. They don't have kind of the Western focused bar type experience that I like going out and having a drink with friends and
Doesn't make you a bad person.
no. So there was some good food there. They have nice malls, but I don't see myself there for sure. And so now I'll be here until I leave, basically.
But what do you think of Dumaguete?
I like Dumaguete. It's bustling. It's a little chaotic, but no, I like it. I like that there are expats.
So you like the hustle and bustle. Well, I know you like Dumaguete because when I first met you last week, you were only going to be here till Sunday, and then you were going to go to Bohol. Why did you blow Bohol off? Why did you stay here?
I just realized that I had planned to go to Bohol, and then I had planned to also go to Cebu for a few days. But I realized, even being here, I'll end up being in Dumaguete almost 2.5 weeks. That's not enough to really know how much you like it, but certainly better than a few days. So I just decided better than scratching the surface, barely scratching the surface in Bohol, and then barely scratching the surface in Cebu, I would stay in Dumaguete a little bit longer, get a little bit better feel for it. I do think I like it enough that I can say I would at the very least start here if I moved here. Maybe I would try and get a month-to-month lease so I wouldn't be locked in for a full year. But yeah, I don't think I was ever going to be able to stay in one place long enough to say, oh, I want to move there for a year. So that was all it was just I liked Dumaguete enough. I thought, oh, I'll get to know it a little better while I have the chance.
Well, if you decide not to come, it's been a very advantageous trip because you've learned that you're not decided to be. I think I've done the right thing. Always amazing when people put all their eggs in one basket and just move somewhere where they've never been before. I mean, you're doing the right thing in that sense, aren't you?
Yeah. Although I'll say I don't think I would have hesitated to do that if not for the fact that I have the dog. I would go somewhere and say, I'm in a position, me personally, I'm in a position where I don't have a house back home. I've already sold the house. I don't have I'm already not working. I'm already retired. So I don't mind going somewhere for a few months. And if you don't like it, you just try out another place,
Has there been any surprises in the Philippines? Has anything disappointed you? Has anything exceeded your expectations? Was it pretty much as you thought it would
I think
be?
it's pretty much. I've been watching so many of you YouTubers for so many years. I've been watching Paul the Old Dog since 2019. So I feel like I knew what to expect for the most part. No real surprises.
Okay, well, interesting.
If anything, I was surprised that girl that was showing us the apartment today showed up as early as she did.
Yeah, there you go. That's a spoiler for the next video. Before we did this, we went and looked at a new apartment, a potential apartment or an idea of an apartment for Greg. So that will probably be the next video or the one after that. Well, so how much longer you got left here?
I'm here. I'll be here in Dumaguete till the 22nd, and then I fly out of Manila on the 23rd.
And who's looking after the dog now?
My folks, my parents.
And you wouldn't think about them taking the dog full time?
My mom, my dog, my father. I think if he weren't married to my mother for 50 plus years, and could just live with a dog, he would. He loves dogs. But my mom doesn't want a dog full time. They had one up until a year and a half ago, and I think she's happy that they don't have that obligation anymore.
Okay. Well, there you go. Well, and you did say to me off camera, you've had quotes for as much as $10,000
Yeah,
to
so
do
I've
with
looked
them.
into a pet transport company, and the one that I got quotes from, um, they only flew to Manila. To fly the dog to Manila was going to be about 7,000 USD. To fly the dog to Manila and then do ground transport to Cebu was going to be about 10,000 US dollars.
Wow.
So it's not cheap.
Well, if anyone is watching the channel that has got any experience of bringing dogs to the Philippines and they know a cheaper way or they've got any advice for Greg, if they've done that, then please put it in the comments.
And it's a pit bull, so most airlines won't fly a pit bull. That's why
Yeah, no,
we're
no, no,
looking.
I get that,
Yeah.
I get that. Well, thanks for sitting down with us, Greg. It's been very interesting. I've always been fascinated about the van life. I hope. Yeah, well, good luck with making your decision. I mean, only you know what's right. You're gonna have to sit down with your dog and have a good talk about it. See what the dog says. And yeah, but no, it's been a very interesting interview, mate. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I appreciate your help and your hospitality while I've been here.
No, you're very welcome, mate. You've been an interesting chap to meet. We've quizzed together on one of the nights when he first got here. So yeah, I've got to know Greg over the last few days. Well, yes, yeah. Well, thanks, mate. Much appreciated. Hopefully you liked the video. If you did, smash the like button. One thing I will do is Greg's shown me some pictures of his van, which he's been living in, which is a nice little conversion job. I will add those at the end of the video in case anyone's interested, because I know a lot of people do have a fascination with van life. Yeah, so if you like the video, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed, it would be fantastic if you did. Whether you do, whether you don't, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stay safe and be lucky.